All right, so let's look at the next part of object-oriented programming, right? So we have covered the object-oriented methods and its return type, right? And we have looked at, so we have covered till now object-oriented programming and the methods and return type. So I've told you that the methods are like a function, right? So which perform some tasks. And the return type generally means that what your function is going to return, right? So let's say if you are using the method type string, right? So method name, and method name always start with this small letter, you have to remember that. So it will going to return something like this. So return, the value is going to be a string value, right? So you have to keep in your mind. And we have looked at the classes, the objects, right? And the class attributes. So there were two things that I have told you the class has, right? So what is a class? So class is generally like a blueprint, or you can say that it's a kind of container which contain many informations like your behavior, right? So and the attributes. So we have discussed this in right in details in first video. So you will go over that. And here we're mainly going to cover is the access modifiers, right? So access modifiers are available in every programming generally. So what is access modifiers? So you might have seen the word static, right? Okay, this is a different thing. Yeah, access modifier public, right? Public static void main, right? So public static void main. So there was one word which is public, right? So what is a public word? So public keyword, which is used in this programming, are maybe available in many other programming languages like Python and other programming languages. So public is a keyword which is access modifier, right? So if any class is going to be public, so you can access that class um, anywhere, right? So into another class, like let's say you have declare a class like hello class, right? And hello.java, and then your next class have the something like animal.java. So these are the two classes, right? And so the public will going to allow you can access this method into this class, um, and vice versa, right? So this is the generally public, right? So you can access public means it would be accessible from anywhere, right? And there are two things: the public, second is the protected, and third is private, right? So it's something like, so you could think of it public like suppose you are in a school, right? And you are allowing using your to everyone, right? Suppose this. So public means suppose you are in a class, right? And you are letting use your friend like pen, right? And books, right? So it means that you are allowing your property, you are keeping your property public, right? So everyone can use it. And when it comes to protected, it means that only your friend can use, or whoever you define that he or she is going to use, right? So if anyone else comes, no, it's not allowed to use, right? Private means that it will be only accessible by you, right? So similar, same thing is here, right? So public, when anything is public, right? Attributes or methods are public, so it means that it could be accessible from anywhere. And when it is protected, so it means that um, the classes which are related to each other only can access these things, right? And the private, so private is only accessible in on class. Generally attributes are defined private, right? So I'll be telling you that how to define these things. So in this video we will particularly looking at these things: public, protected, and private, right? And in detail with examples, right? So just keep watching and just start your IDE and start doing the things, right? All right, so in previous example, we were looking at these classes, right? So animal class. So in animal class, we have defined some attributes, but these attributes are not something, you could say that there is no applicability of the access modifiers, right? So what we do is we will allowing the public, right? So let's do this public, right? Public. Right now you will see that these class are now public, right? So let's assign some values here, right? So lazy birds, force, generally animal has four legs, right? Color, you could say that this is going to be black, white, and the breed, uh, leave the breed as it is, right? So we're not going to touch this. Let's remove this. Okay, so we have the attributes and methods, and methods are also, few methods also public, make it public, right? So these methods will public, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create an object in my test class, right? Okay. So to access these attributes and behavior which are public, so what we need to, we have to first create an object. Let's say um, this is the way how objects are created, right? So let's say create an object dog, right? So what is an object? So object is just, you can think of like instance of a class, right? So it is just like using keyword new, right? So we're just allowing this. So now this object dog will going to contain all the properties of this animal class, right? So now if you have to access, okay, let's print this something as the dog has, and say dot dot. So dot is actually the very it's a symbol that is used to access the methods or the attributes, right? So let's use the color, right? So when you put dot, you'll see that the color, right, lex, and the run and sound method. So we have created run and sound methods, right? So dot color, okay, lex. So we are accessing the lex, right? And if we run this program, okay, yes, just have to do some extra work like this, right? Now we run this. Okay, you'll see that something this like this. Here, give this space. Now run this again. So you will see something like this, right? The dog has four legs, and So what we are doing here, so we have created an object, right? So this is an object. So we actually instantiate the object, right, from the animal class, right? And while we are accessing, this is accessing the attributes, right? So if you look at the here animal, and if we remove this, right, let's say example, just remove this public keyword, right? And if we remove this, and in that case, if we run this program, so I think that this is going to take default, right? So right, yeah, this will run. So I have told you that the four things, right? And in fourth, actually, one thing is that is default keyword, right? So default, so you don't have to define by default. It means that it will already going to take default, right? So default means if any package, right? So if it is in same package, it will going to access the whole thing, right? And then we have public keyword, right? So if you are doing public, then it means that it is accessible to my in, in test class, right? In new objects, right? That we have created top. And let's do something differently here, and let's change this private, right? If I change this private, so you will see something funny now. Okay, now you'll see that red, right? Red marks, yeah. So what is that? It has private access, common animal, right? So Lex has private access, so you cannot access this, right, at all. And now the private property only accessible within the class, right? So what you have to do is public static void main. If we have to do the same thing here, let's take the test class here. Right, so now you it is accessible here, right? But you cannot access in the next class, which is the test class, right? So this is about the, and this, if you are doing it's protected, right? So if it is protected, right, so in that case you can access it here, it's fine, but you are not allowed to access somewhere else, for example, where, right? So you have a different class, let's say here, right, basic Java. So okay, if you have to access that here, so here is not accessible actually. So in different classes it's not accessible, so generally we have to remember that. So public static void. So here we'll see something like this, right? Dog has four legs. And so this is the access about access modifiers, right? So we're not going to deep, right? So when you're defining the variables, right, so you have to be pretty much um, careful that this is going to be protected or public or whatever, right? So so this is the whole thing about it, right? And next video looking about the getters and setters and the constructors, right? So these things are interesting, right? So actually, why I'm doing is I want to make this video small and so that you can use it, right? So thanks for watching. We'll see you in next video. Thank you.